right, welcome to the video feed followers from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. This is Martial Arts World Radio. I'm Joseph Clark, and thanks for joining us. We're going to get the show underway any moment.
Now, this update from the Canadian press. The European Union's Executive Commission is asking for patience as it attempts to salvage the free trade deal between Canada and the EU. A Commission spokesperson says deadlines and ultimatums for the tiny Belgian region of Wallonia, which has holding up the process, are counterproductive. A 2-year stay has been granted to a longtime Quebec resident facing deportation to his native Italy. Michael Torre was convicted in 1996 in a cocaine importation conspiracy linked to the Catoni crime family and served part of a nearly 9-year prison sentence. And the grandfather of a teenage girl beaten and drowned on Vancouver Island nearly 20 years ago says he hopes her killer is inspired to become a better person after getting pregnant in prison. The Vancouver Sun is reporting Kelly Eller is 8 months pregnant following a conjugal visit with her boyfriend, who is also serving time. Eller was 15 when she smashed 14-year-old Rita Burke's head against a tree and held her underwater until she stopped moving.
Okay, Richard, so we are on in about 60 seconds or so, so I'm going to make your mic live now. That means that everybody will pick things up that they hear in the background. And yeah, there'll be a couple of ads running, and then the show will kick in. So do you have any questions for me? It'll be a lot of fun. I really appreciate you being here. Break a leg. Just don't break my leg. It will be. All right, and I'm going to make your mic a live mic now. All right.
Sponsored by Grey Bruce Brick and Landscape Supply. This area is leader for clay and brick, carrying quality products such as Hanson. Visit Grey Bruce Brick and Hanover's Industrial Park at 525 First Street in Hanover.
Tonight, mainly cloudy with a 60% chance of rain showers changing to a 40% chance of flurries overnight. Wind out of the northwest at 30 kilometers gusting to 50 to a low of +1. For Tuesday, mainly cloudy with a 40% chance of showers in the morning. Wind out of the northwest at 20 kilometers gusting to 40 to a high of 6. For Wednesday, increasing cloudiness and a high of only 5. And looking ahead to Thursday, rain and a high of 8 degrees.
The Hanover Public Library will present a safe driving seminar for seniors on October the 26th at 2 p.m. Sean Murray of the Ministry of Transport will be sharing tips and advice on staying safe on the roads this winter. Admission is only $2. Please pre-register at the library or call 519-364-1420 for more information.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and not necessarily those of Blue Water Radio.
Welcome to Martial Arts World Radio. I'm your host, Joseph Clark. Are you a champion? Do you truly believe you deserve to be a champion? Have you earned it? Are you honest with yourself about areas that require improvement, attention, and effort? We ask these and other relevant questions of today's martial arts stars. Each week, in every show, we speak to different fighters from the UFC, Olympic martial arts medalists, world champion martial artists, and icons, legends, and pioneers, many of whom have gone on to become stars of martial arts cinema. I have a book to bring to your attention. Check out Why I Fight by BJ Penn, a blunt and brutal look at UFC champion BJ Penn's hardest fought victories and most frustrating defeats. This week's inspirational quote is from Winston Churchill and goes as follows: "Success is not final. Failure is not final. It is the courage to continue that counts." Winston Churchill, 1874 to 1965.
Hi, I'm Don the Dragon Wilson, and you're listening to Joseph Clark at Martial Arts World Radio.
Richard Norton is an accomplished martial artist with over 45 years of dedication to his studies and practice, resulting in black belts in multiple disciplines. He's well known and respected equally amongst the global who's who black belt community and the martial arts cinema community. He has trained with the biggest names in martial arts: Chuck Norris, Superfoot Bill Wallace, Cynthia Rothrock, and Don the Dragon Wilson, to name but a few. He has been a bodyguard and provided security for David Bowie, the Rolling Stones, James Taylor, John Belushi, ABBA, and Fleetwood Mac. However, that is just a small sample of his clientele. He has worked as an actor, stuntman, and fight choreographer on an incredible resume of films and television productions, which includes over 50 productions, and he's been frequently featured in martial art magazines. Speaking to us from Australia is Richard Norton. Richard, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Joe. Pleasure to be with you.
Now, you were recently in Toronto working on the film Suicide Squad. Would you tell us about that?
Well, the first thing I remember about Toronto and Suicide Squad is I've never been so cold in all my life, Joe. That was in February. I remember going outside and wondering, why do they have this pathway, this underground sort of city? And it took me 2 minutes to realize why you had that. It was freezing. But aside from that, it's a wonderful, wonderful city, and doing Suicide Squad was a fantastic experience, you know, especially considering the cast and some of the friendships that I made on that shoot.
And were you a fight coordinator? Were you coordinating stunts? What capacity did they employ you on that set?
No, I was hired as fight coordinator.
Okay.
And the job, you know, the fight coordinator is of course hired by the supervising stunt coordinator, which is Guy Norris. I've known Guy for 25 plus years, working in numerous productions, so Guy brings me on. And so my job is just to put the fights together. And of course, I always say to people, fight coordinator, it's not like I choreograph every move so much. I had some wonderful, wonderful locals as stunt doubles for the actors, you know, like Will Smith and Margot Robbie, and it was just a great team. So it's a very collaborative sort of thing that we do. In other words, we get on the mat and we just start figuring out the script. Everything that we do in the fight sense is based on character and story. It's not just a matter of putting a whole lot of flashy moves together. And as I said, it was just a great little team, and we just have a lot of fun doing that. Of course, it's important work. We need to be safe. And as I said, everything we do needs to be pertinent to the script and story, and of course, stay true to what the director wants, you know, out of a shoot like that.
And I find with A-level movies, fight choreography today is ever changing and improving. Does it become a challenge to show the audience something they haven't seen before?
Oh, there's no question about it. My favorite mantra when we start films like this is there's virtually no fight that hasn't already been done. I mean, you know, in my day we had sort of karate movies, and then there was ninja movies and Vietnam movies and war movies, etc., etc. And of course now there's a lot of what we call extreme. You know, there's acrobatics involved in the fights. You've got a lot of wire work that they do in all the Marvel and DC comic movies and Avengers and so on. So that's the biggest dilemma, is how do you make something different? And this is why I like to stress that we have a saying that the fights should be incidental to a good story. In other words, you should be able to take the fights out of an action movie, in my mind, and still have a really good, interesting story to watch. Otherwise, it's kind of just a whole lot of little show pieces, and I think people get very bored with that. Which is why, again, everything we do, we try and base on character and on story. If it doesn't fit into that storyline and the drama of that story, then it's out of place. And I think audiences, even though they might be able to articulate why they don't buy it, I just think they don't. And part of my job, I find, is getting with the actors. And of course, having said that, it helps when you have just amazing actors like a Will Smith or Margot Robbie to work with. And I try and explain that fights are just a continuation of the drama. We call it non-verbal dialogue, where you have it coming from, you know, what started the fight, what's your intent, are you angry, are you sad, are you fearful? All of those elements need to go into that particular fight, as well as, very importantly, what gives that character a license to be able to do the moves or use the weapons that they use in that fight. I mean, a perfect example would be if you had the old Dirty Harry movies, if suddenly Clint Eastwood jumped up and did a jumping spinning heel kick, you would go, well, how the heck does he know how to do that? In other words, it wouldn't sort of fall in line with his character background and where he would obtain those skills. So that's a very important part for me. And I have also something, a bit of a mantra I say to the actors, that if you can see the character thinking in the middle of the fight, in other words, not just going through the moves, because anybody can do that. We can get stunt doubles to do that perfectly. But we can have the character and we have the camera on the face of that actor, and we see them making decisions within that fight. I think that's gold, and I think that's what will really draw an audience in, even if it means that the fight is a little more basic than something else they've seen. In other words, it's got an organic sort of flavor to it. It becomes more real. And that's my push with the fights. As much as we can do, and as I said, when you get wonderful actors, it's not that difficult, because I'll say to Margot, well, you don't know that person's over there when you turn to shoot them. We need to sense that there's some awareness that you have that makes you turn, that makes you aim your firearm and shoot that person. Or if, in the case of Suicide Squad, somebody behind you and she's smacking in the head with a baseball bat. There's got to be that non-action. In other words, what are you thinking and doing just before that actual physical action? And I believe that shows on the face of the character and the actor. And again, for me, that's what makes it far more interesting, what that actor will bring to that character in the middle of that action.
Sure, I guess the audience takes for granted how much dramatic acting actually goes into fight scenes. Now, you were also hired by the producers of Mad Max Fury Road. Was that a similar engagement?
Absolutely, yes. I was fight coordinator on Mad Max Fury Road. And once again, due to my dear friend Guy Norris, who was in charge of second unit and supervising, he's just an amazing mind when it comes to action and getting his head around the most complicated and complex situations. So I come in as fight coordinator. That, again, was an incredible experience. Not only, if nothing else, because it's such an iconic Australian franchise, the Mad Max movies, and to be finally involved in one and on set with George Miller, who again is such an iconic director, as everybody would know. I mean, I was just like a kid in a playground. It was just fantastic. And as you know, we shot that in Namibia. Namibia used to be part of South Africa and South Africa, and just to be out there in the wilderness in Africa, I mean, goodness me, I thought, how good is this? It was tough. It was tough. We're in the middle of nowhere. Your home is kind of like a tin car that you happen to be in the middle of the desert. There's dust storms and there's all sorts of mist and everything else that rolls in. But again, that just sort of, I think, adds to the whole organicness of the end result of that picture, which it's almost made people rethink the way we do action, just because it's back to old school. Sure, there was CG effects and visual effects in there, but every stunt you saw was real stunt pen, putting their lives on the line, crashing real cars, and I think that's fantastic. In other words, it wasn't all tricked up with modern technology. It was just raw and gutsy, which is always George Miller's sort of vision for that. And I think that was achieved. It was incredibly successful from that point of view.
Excellent. Now, Richard, Fighting Stars magazine ranked your climactic fight with Chuck Norris in the movie The Octagon as number 13 on its list of the 25 greatest fight scenes of all time. Would you walk us through the experience of setting up that fight scene with Chuck Norris?
Well, The Octagon was my first film in the United States. I had done one movie or done with an actor in Australia in about 1976, I think it was, but I never aspired to get into movies. It was, Bob Jones, partner of mine, we set up a style called Sendokai back in the 70s. Bob went over to Australia, brought Chuck out to do some demonstrations, and I was doing demonstrations on the same card, and I happened to be demonstrating with Sai and Bo, a few different weapons, and Chuck and I just got on like a house on fire. We became immediate friends. He said to me, if you get to California, look me up, I'll do some training, which you can imagine for an Aussie kid, all that far away. That was like, I couldn't believe that was actually happening. I ended up going to the States in '79 as a personal bodyguard to James Tatter and then Ronstadt. The first person I called up was Chuck, and we started training every morning in his house. And I'm paraphrasing now, he said, look, I'd like you to play the bad guy in this movie we're prepping called The Octagon. And that was based on him knowing I could handle, and weapons, etc. So we started putting the fights together in the backyard of Chuck's house. We used to live in a place called Rolling Hills Estates, out past LAX Airport. And with, of course, Chuck's brother Aaron, and we just started putting together. In fact, Chuck's even still got old black and white footage of some of the rehearsals and us figuring those fights out. And that's how it all started. And I remember thinking, wow, this is how cool is this, to be in the backyard training with Chuck Norris and now getting into a movie with him. And of course, I get on the set. There's, Sensei Tamashi Yamashita. He's just an amazing martial artist. Simon and Philip Green, in other words, just a cross section of the who's who of martial arts.
Surreal.
Getting to train and interact with, and off we go. And the end result being the actual fight. I think also what was good about that fight, it's a bit like what we said when we're going back to old school. It was shot quite wide. In other words, you got to see what the characters were doing, as in Chuck and myself. You got to appreciate the skill set, and it wasn't as though it was that complex. But I believe again, it just had an organic feel with it. So I'm thrilled that people, still resonate with that fight.
Now, Richard, you have co-starred in many Hong Kong action films, and you've worked with Jackie Chan, I believe, 3 times?
Yes, correct.
What is it like working with Jackie?
Initially, incredibly difficult. I say that because when I first went over thinking, okay, probably 10, 12-hour days, normal union picture. I'll get to do a lot of my own stuff. Well, nothing could have been further from the truth. It was a film called Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars that Sammo Hung was directing. And for those who don't know, there's, like in Chinese sort of standing, Sammo Hung is big brothers, Jackie is brother, and Yingdu, another great Chinese martial artist, was younger brother, And so I'm on the set with these guys, and we did a little bit of drama for a while, and then the action started. And I was literally on the set doing this first fight, which was with the great Sammo Hung, for 3.5 weeks, and I was on the set 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're fighting all day long. You do a piece, sit down, and then figure out another bit, and off you went. It was the most grueling thing I've ever been through. The contact, at least to the body, was virtually full body contact. I even caught uppercuts under the chin from Sammo, where they put the camera in a particular position where he had to hit me, and they wanted to see my face contorting in slow motion. It's possible to put in my teeth, because when I chip my teeth. But so it was grueling, but luckily I was always in really good shape. I didn't mind the impact and the contact. And that first movie is what led to me doing another 2 with Jackie. They just appreciated that I would do what they asked, that I would take the bumps and not complain. And in fact, at one stage, I was the only Westerner ever asked to do more than 1 movie with Jackie, which is something I'm very proud of. And it's not because I'm a better martial artist than anyone else. I think I just had an understanding of the timing that Jackie needed, and it just worked for their purposes. And I learned so much because it's so different from a Western film in timing and contact and everything else, camera placement. But it was just an amazing learning experience for me working in Hong Kong. I went on to City Hunter with Jackie, of course, and then Mr. Nice Guy, which we shot in Australia, playing the lead baddies, and then worked with Sammo Hung in Millionaires Express, which was a separate movie, which again was just an amazing experience. Very different, as I said, from American-style movies. I can just say that much. Some
great films. You have been a trainer, and you have produced instructional videos and conducted seminars. Tell us about adrenal dump, stress control, and preemptive strikes.
Well, reality-based training, the thing that's sort of, I would say, missing in a lot of martial arts schools is the actual, what we call pressure testing. In other words, it's quite controlled. You know someone's going to throw, say, a right straight punch, and you can do all these moves and blocks and counters. So it's very predictable. It's what I call consensual sparring. And in fact, most combat sports are consensual. In a boxing match, it's consensual. In other words, you're fighting a person in the opposite corner. There's a referee. bell rings and off you go, and there are rules. MMA is the same, wrestling is the same. The problem with the street is there are no rules. There's nobody that's going to say stop. Excuse me. If somebody's getting hurt or whatever. And that's very, very confronting for somebody that hasn't experienced that. Luckily, working in modern doors and doing bodyguard work for 25 years, I understand what adrenal dump is. And pretty much it's just when your pulse rate shoots up, and they've had pulse rates of up to 200 beats a minute in ambush situations. In other words, when you're standing there and the next minute out of the corner of your eye, somebody's throwing a punch and trying to take your head off. Your pulse rate just goes through the roof. The results of that are a little bit, it's basically that your forebrain gets hijacked by your midbrain, and you're really in fight or flight mode. You're not going to do complex motor skills, you're going to get into what we call gross motor skills, where you're really in survival mode. And in that state, when you react, and importantly, when people react, you've got to think what that means. It's a reaction. The action you react with should be what you've drilled into your nervous system over and over again, but also under pressure as much as possible in your academy, in your dojo, to prepare you for that adrenal dump. Because it's quite debilitating. I mean, a lot of people get the freeze syndrome where they just freeze and they're unable to think coherently, you know, and to take the necessary steps to survive. So that's kind of and I know we've got short time and it's a lot more complex than that. Mm-hmm. But the point of that is this is why actually things like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, everything else do have their place, even in a controlled dojo, because you're actually getting punched. You're punching people, you're getting tapped out, or you're tapping somebody out with submission locks and holds, and that alone can be quite confronting, but it goes a long way to prepare you for that no-rule situation out there in the street. Preemptive strikes, just quickly, are all based on action-reaction principle, that if you're standing in front of somebody, if you know 100% what they're going to throw at you, whether it's a headbutt or a right hand or a left hook, that's okay. The problem is you don't. You have to be right 100% of the time. So if you're going to wait to get the perception of somebody, say, launching a big right hand hook and punch in your head, to recognize it, get neurological relay, make a decision, oh, he's throwing a punch, I have to block or move, it's too late. So the preemption comes in, you need to be first. And that's based on all the body language of the person in front of you, maybe what they've said to you, the way they clenched their fist. You make a decision that if the next 3 seconds they're going to try and rearrange my face, I have to go first. You have to decide the attack. And that gives you the opportunity to decide what you strike with, where you strike with, and how hard you strike with, as opposed to reacting. And I kind of say that you've got to make a judgment call because you are responsible for what you do. But as the old saying goes, better to be judged by 12 than carried out by 6. So that's kind of the basis for that, Joe.
Now, Richard, we're down to our last 2 minutes of our interview here. It goes by all too fast, and obviously 20 minutes is just scratching the surface of what you could share. But you have an extensive site with some great philosophy blogs. Would you share the URL for that site to us, or with us?
It's www.richardnorton.net.
Okay, and is there a particular area of personal philosophy that would be relevant that you would like to share with us briefly tonight?
Look, there's so many, Joe, and I'd love to do this again because, as you said, we just scratched the surface. But I just want people to understand, as martial arts, why we do what we do and why we learn what people would call warlike techniques, which seem to be the antithesis to being spiritual and martial and everything else. But if I've got time, there's a quick little story that I love. And it basically it was in a magazine called The Peaceful Warriors, where a young apprentice, while training in the use of the Chinese sword, asked his teacher, why, if he's striving to be inwardly calm and in peace, why did he need to learn the ways of a warrior? Would it not be more tranquil and serene to be a gardener and tend the plants, he asked. And tending the garden, the master replied, is a relaxed pastime, but it does not prepare one for the inevitable battles of life. It is easy to be calm in a serene setting. To be calm and serene when under attack is much more difficult. So therefore, I tell you that it is far best to be a warrior tending his garden rather than a gardener at war, meaning that we can be that peaceful warrior, but when the violence is brought to you, whether it's a car jacking, home invasion, that's when it seems to be smart to have some warrior skills. In other words, we're not taking the violence to people, but if it's brought to your step, best to be a warrior in the garden. I love that philosophy as a justification for what we do, and it very much follows the samurai code, you know, where you have a sword, but you're also a complete gentleman. I understood China used the tea ceremony, flower arrangement. In other words, a very rounded gentleman with their combative art and their skill with the sword, and I very much believe in sort of push that mantra as much as I can.
Richard, we hope you will return real soon, and I want to thank you for speaking with us today, and I congratulate you on an incredible martial arts journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe, and I would love to do it again. As I said, I'm not a bad talker. We could go on for ages, and I'd love to share just some of my life experiences. As you said, I've been fortunate to train with some of the best, and that knowledge needs to be passed on. It's not mine, it's just opinions. It's something that I think that is well worthy that we chat about and pass on, at least to give different martial artists, especially the younger ones, food for thought. You know, so thank you very much for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
And thank you once again. This has been an interview with Richard Norton.
This is World Champion Steve Nasty Anderson. You're listening to Martial Arts World Radio.
Richard, out of the park. Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to jump off and grab my next guest, but I will call you back to give you a proper thank you, and we should certainly arrange to have you back real soon. That was great. Thank you so much.
Follow us on Twitter. Our handle or Twitter name is @BlueWaterRadio. And like us on Facebook. We have loads of exclusive.
Likewise, and we'll pick up on that directly the next time, but I'll be in touch. Thanks again.
And check out all the latest
Bye
news
now.
and information in the Grey Bruce area. So spread the word and follow Blue Water Radio to win. Dawn Twitter is right around the corner. Or just come up with some great offers to deal with it.
For the first time, you can get a set of winter tires, rims, and sensors at no extra charge on most 2016 and 17 F-150s.
Or you can choose to take $1,500 in Ford accessories.
And to top it off, get 0% financing up to 84 months on most 16 F-150s as well.
Hi, Clifford.
Now, my Maple Leafs would go up and win the cup. I like
Hi, Joseph Clark, Martial Arts World Radio. I'm well. How are you? Excellent. Great. So we're just on a commercial break. Really looking forward to having you on the air, and we're going to be on in about 2 minutes' time. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this your phone a live mic right now. You're going to hear the radio feed. We're going to come back from a commercial break. I'm going to say a couple of words, and then I'm going to introduce you. All right. Super. Thanks again for being here. Don't go away. I'm going to make your phone a live mic now. All right. Break a leg. You'll do great.
This Sunday afternoon from 3 until 5, Blue Water Radio presents another live in concert performance from Hanover's Civic Theater, presented on stage by Back Porch Events. This month we present a two-part presentation of the roots of rock and roll and a tribute to the Jersey Boys, recorded on Friday, October 14th. If you love doo-wop and the hits of the Four Seasons, you won't want to miss this concert. That's this Sunday at 3, right here on 91.3 FM, Blue Water Radio.
Multitasking. We all do it. Heck, I can sit on my couch, I can watch 5 channels and Google my brains out all at the same time. It's very impressive and it's safe. But multitasking while you're driving, using your cell phone or texting, that's not impressive. That's, what's the word I'm looking for here? Dumb. It's also illegal, so don't do it. Anything that takes your eyes off the road increases your chance of crashing. When it comes to driving, it's eyes on the road, hands on the wheel, my friends. It's the law.
A message from the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police.
Blue Water Radio. Today's best music. You only have to turn us on once. We'll turn you on for the rest of the day. 91.3 FM.
Special announcements are brought to you by Ontario Power Generation, Ontario's clean energy provider.
This is UFC fighter Jason Zago. You are now listening to Martial Arts World Radio with Joseph Clark.
For those of you listening to Martial Arts World Radio while on your phones, tablets, or laptops, be sure to check out www.worldblackbelt.com, the world's foremost martial arts online community. Also, Google the book The Tao, T-A-O, of MMA, or go to Amazon and do a search for The Tao of MMA. Clifford Big Cat Starks is an American middleweight professional MMA fighter with 13 wins and 3 losses to his record. He has fought for the UFC, Bellator, World Series of Fighting, and other fight promotion companies. Clifford, thank you for joining us, and welcome to Martial Arts World Radio.
Thanks for having me.
You went to Arizona State University. What degree did you graduate with?
I ended up getting a degree in kinesiology
And where did you do your associate's degree?
at Mesa Community College.
So what sports did you compete in while you were in college and university?
I competed in several: football, wrestling, and track and field.
Oh, very good. And did you wrestle in high school as well?
Yeah.
And at what age did you begin training in combat sports?
On combat sports, I began around 28.
Around 28 years of age. So you actually started
I was actually a late bloomer.
a late bloomer, a little later in life.
Yeah.
And Clifford, you took your first UFC fight with just a week's notice. Please share that story with us.
Yeah, I just finished a shark fight. After that victory, I was actually out partying and celebrating, enjoying the victory that I had. And my coach called me and told me they had a UFC fight available, and if I'd be ready. Asked when it was, and he said next Saturday. And I said, well, looks like I'm going to have to be ready then. So that's what became the career of my UFC debut.
And did you have an interest in martial arts or combat sports growing up? I know you didn't actually take formal instruction, but was there any interest there from movies or boxing or anything like that?
I was always interested in any kind of art, any kind of fighting art. I liked watching a lot of boxing. I like karate as well, Muay Thai. And so I've always had the desire to learn it. I just never really put the tools together and tried it for myself until later in life.
And did you follow some of the early days of the golden era of the UFC?
I did. I was actually really impressed with what Royce Gracie was able to do, being much smaller than some of the opponents he competed against. So I had when I would see what a jiu-jitsu specialist could do to a much larger guy, I thought that was a pretty cool one.
And do you watch martial art films?
I do.
You do. Any in particular that stand out as your favorites?
Bruce Lee actually is one of my favorite actors. Also, of course, the Kickboxing trilogy, I watched that as well. But Return of the Dragon is one of my favorites.
Oh yes, Return of the Dragon. And you know, Enter the Dragon, the opening scene in Enter the Dragon between Bruce Lee and Sammo Hung. I mean, that was shot back in the early to mid 70s, and that scene is a complete choreography of MMA. Back then they called it freestyle martial arts, but obviously it played right into Bruce Lee's philosophy, and it's a respectable choreography of MMA that would stand up in, I think, the octagon today.
I agree. Yeah, he's definitely one of the pioneers of our sport.
Do you have any favorite UFC fighters that are inspirations for you?
I really like the way George St. Pierre fights. I know a lot of people were talking about how later on he was just going for the decision, but you got to remember he's fighting with high-level, top-of-the-chain guys going for the title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to get the knockout or the submission on a regular basis is very difficult to do. He always came in with a perfect game plan, and he beat him with the perfect game plan. And people thought they could figure out how to find a weakness of his, and no one ever did. And that's really difficult to do in the sport as long as he did it for.
Yeah, and you know, Clifford, a lot of people don't understand that you know, a lot of times wild card knockouts, they're very flashy and they can be very intriguing and entertaining. But a lot of the audience, I'm sure you'll agree, doesn't understand that a strategic fight, a strategist and a technician might not make for the most entertaining, flashy fight, but there's a lot of skill and patience that goes into that kind of a victory.
Oh, completely. Completely.
When you're not training... Go ahead.
I said the way he was able to, he actually had the perfect mix, him and Mighty Mouse as well. Two fighters that have a perfect mix of the grappling aspect and the striking aspect. And it's hard to find someone who can go from all areas of the game and be strong everywhere.
So when you're training, are you trying to emphasize being well-rounded, or is there a particular strength that you try to capitalize on?
I think it's best to be well-rounded. It is easy to fall in love with something that you're strong at. You want to do that all the time.
Sure.
But I think the best route is to consistently fine-tune every area, fine-tune your strengths and your weaknesses as well.
Clifford, when you are not training or competing in MMA, do you have other hobbies?
Yes. I do like to read a lot, actually.
Oh, very good. What do you like to read?
One of my favorite authors was Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill, good author.
Yeah, I actually just finished reading a book called Outwitting the Devil, and I read his book, Think and Grow Rich. I also have Dale Carnegie. I only read one of his books, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is another interesting book.
Good books.
Yeah.
You were inducted into your high school Mountain Points Hall of Fame alongside an Olympian, a polio survivor who went on to a successful career as an innovator in media, and a successful comedian and writer in Hollywood. How do you feel about being recognized by your high school for your achievements in the octagon and as an athlete?
It's really awesome to be put into such a high-level caliber of games like that. I mean, as an individual, you at least me personally, I try and just be the best man that I can be. My parents raised me to focus on you and let the outcome fall the way it will fall, but be just the perfect version of you that you can be, and to have the honors that I've gotten, I very much appreciate them.
And Clifford, you've mentored youths who have been targets of bullying, and this is a subject which you obviously place personal importance on. Please tell us about that.
The reason I'm so strong-willed on that is I used to get bullied myself when I was younger. I was a heavier set kid, and I always say you have two ways of looking at it. You can become angry at bullies and try and become a bully yourself, or you can try and understand why a bully is what a bully is, and not necessarily be bigger than the bully, but understanding the bully and helping the bully get through what they have trouble getting through. If I am bullied and I get upset and I start bullying other people, then it's that circle that's never broken. But if you can take the chance to understand that individual and be a strong individual yourself and maintain what you are, and try and actually understand the individual, you'd be surprised you can create long-lasting friendships that way.
You can indeed. Clifford, are there heroes in your life?
My dad's probably my biggest hero, because he just kind of instilled with me a lot of the habits that I have today, and they haven't done me wrong yet. One of the simplest ones was he actually put me up to the mirror, had me look at it, and he reminded me that no matter what happens in this world, it's because you did it and nobody else. And if you remember that and you don't make yourself a victim in life, you can do anything. So I've really, really stood by what he said on that. It's done nothing but good for me.
And it certainly has done nothing but good for you. When it comes to your repertoire of skills in MMA, do you have any areas, for lack of a better term, I don't want to say weak areas, but do you have areas where you recognize those are opportunities to improve, areas that you want to develop better?
The thing with MMA, it makes it very difficult to perfect every area, because when you are working on one area, you're kind of weakening another area because you can't work on all of them all the time, especially when you're getting ready for a fight.
Sure.
Getting ready for a fight, you're kind of tailoring towards their weaknesses. But basically, to develop the best all-around game possible is to consistently go into everybody else's strength. So basically what I mean, if you're looking for boxing, go with high-level boxers. You don't go with other MMA fighters. If you're going into jiu-jitsu, you go with high-level jiu-jitsu athletes, and the same with wrestling. You go with high-level wrestlers. If you go with just other MMA guys, MMA essentially is a jack of all trades, master of none, because you just don't have time to perfect the craft the way, say, a boxer is doing nothing but boxing. There's no way an MMA fighter can box, wrestle, and do jiu-jitsu and expect to be as good at boxing. And the same with jiu-jitsu and the same with wrestling. So I think the best way to work on your weaknesses is to go with people who are actually experts in that area.
Clifford, our final question for this evening, do you have any advice for our listeners on how to be honest with themselves, honest with ourselves, and mindful about those areas that we must improve on? Because it can be very difficult for us to be able to admit where those areas are and that we do in fact have weaknesses or faults. Would you give us some advice on how to approach that?
Yeah, I guess the best way to put it would be, we're in school, we're given A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's. And nobody wants an S or a D, because an S means that you're a failure. But failures are really what makes success. It depends on how you look at it. If you look at life as, my failure is going to get me closer to where I need to go, not my failure is that's the end goal. And unfortunately, a lot of people see it as that, so they don't want to even admit that they failed at something. But in order to be successful, you have to fail.
In order to be successful, you have to experience failure. Clifford, this has been a terrific interview, and I want to thank you for your candor, and I wish you much success in all aspects of your life.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to an interview with professional MMA middleweight fighter Clifford Starks.
Hi, I'm Bob Wall, World Contact Fighting Champion. I'm the choreographer of You're listening to Martial Arts World Radio.
Hey Clifford, great job, and thanks once again for being here. Well done. Oh, it was terrific. So I'll get a recording of that to you. I'm going to call you and give you a proper thank you later because I'm in a rush to get the next guest on. But once again, class act, great job. Thank you. Hey, best of luck to you. Thanks again.
By calling 519-364-3473. This seminar is a partnership between the Hanover Police and Meridian.
Western Ontario's best music mix, BWR, Blue Water Radio, 91.3 FM.
This is Andy Mack for the Sounds of Scotland show. Join me every week for the Sounds of Scotland. Each week I'll be playing the very best in Scottish music, from the Lottie ballads right through to the bagpipes. There's some cheery chat and what's on in the Scottish.
Hi, Chucky. Joseph Clark with Martial Arts World Radio.
That's the Sounds of Scotland show.
I'm doing real well. So we're going to be on in about 60 seconds time. We're on a commercial break. I'm going to put you on so that you get the live feed for the radio. My best advice is I got a lot of questions for you, so do your best to keep them short answer, just so we can get as many in as we can, because I don't want to rush it. But by that same token, in doing my homework, I have lots of questions. You're going to be a fascinating guest. So thanks again for being here. All right, so yeah, so don't go away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the feed a live feed now. I'm going to make your telephone a live mic, and when we come back from commercial, I'm going to introduce you, okay? All right, good stuff. So don't hang up. I'm going to give you the feed now, and I'm going to make your phone a live mic. Break a leg and do a great job, Chucky. I'm sure you will.
Be sure to take advantage of the 29.
I know you will. Thank you, sir. All right, your phone's going to be a live mic now. Don't go away.
Bigger, brighter, and better. On Thursday, the first day of our Grand Week event, the first 200 people who visit the store will receive a Canadian Tire tube or ice scraper. If you need it, we got it. Canadian Tire, Canada's store.
This is Dwayne Hackman from Aerodynamic Deck Cleaning. As a small business owner, I need to promote my business as cost effectively as I can. You've heard me say, my business sucks, and that's just the way I like it. Now, thanks to Blue Water Radio, when homes and businesses in this area need their ductwork cleaned, they call me first. Blue Water Radio keeps my business's name out there. I didn't realize advertising on local radio was so effective and inexpensive. I now advertise my business on Blue Water Radio continually, and it really works. It's as simple as that. Advertising on Blue Water Radio gives me the best bang for my buck. Do I sound like a sucker to you?
This is Jim Rod. Join me on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. for the Sunday night Old Time Radio Show.
All right, Chucky, you there?
I'll be presenting 2 old-time
all right, good stuff. So we are going to be on in 30 seconds, okay, buddy? So I'm going to make your phone a live mic. Break a leg.
So if you want to remember shows like...
All right. Good stuff. Your phone is a live mic now.
Roy Rogers and the Inner Sanctum. You won't want to miss the Sunday night Old Time Radio Show. Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. right here on 91.3 FM, Blue Water Radio.
Midwestern Ontario's best music mix, BWR, Blue Water Radio, 91.3 FM.
This is Olivier Grenard. You are listening to Martial Arts World Radio with Joseph Clark.
Our next guest began training in martial arts at age 6 and was awarded his first black belt at age 10. He won his first tournament at age 13. He has dedicated himself to being the best fight technician he possibly can for 40 years. He's won in excess of 400 forms, sparring, and weapons titles. Chuck Norris introduced him to an audience as the next Bruce Lee. Superfoot Bruce Wallace, Bill Wallace, said he was the best technician he had ever fought. He has competed against a list of most of the martial arts stars you hear interviewed on this show. He's been widely featured in martial arts magazines, and he is respected amongst the competition circuit and Hollywood as an incredibly gifted aerial kicker. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from California is Mr. Chucky Curry. Welcome, Chucky.
Hey, thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Chucky, as you know, week in and week out, I'm speaking with martial arts stars and UFC fighters on a daily basis, and it would seem that no matter who I speak to, they know Chucky Curry. Tell us how it is you make such an impression.
I just stay very busy.
Now, as a kid, I was intrigued by martial arts from Bruce Lee films and my older brother who took Taekwondo and then Kung Fu, but I didn't start formal instruction until I was in my late teens in the military. What motivated you at such a young age to get into martial arts?
I lived with my grandfather, and I guess watching Kato on television, the Great Northern Series, that just really suits me up, made me like want to get excited and kicking.
And what was the first style you trained in?
I believe it was Tai Chi, Wushu, Kung Fu, and then went on.
And I read that as a child at one point you were training simultaneously in 3 different schools. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what style did you earn your first black belt in?
I believe it was karate.
In karate. Now, you know, Chucky, for me, martial arts is not just a personal expression and athletic pursuit. It's a philosophy that applies to all aspects of my life. Share some of your philosophy with us.
Well, I just believe that one should focus on their goals and be positive and practice hard and be determined and persistent.
And who's your favorite fighter, Chucky?
Movies or television, or what do you mean?
Well, let's start with movies.
Well, in the movies, I think Bruce Lee still is number one.
And how about your tournament or competition fighter?
Well, I like Bill Wallace. I think he's a great fighter, and you know, he's like one of the favorites.
Bill Wallace, of course. For our listeners who are on their tablets and devices, what website would you like to direct them to this evening?
ChuckyCurry.com.
Chucky Curry, that's C-U-R-R-I-E.
Yes, sir.
ChuckyCurry.com. Chucky, how did you get that reputation as such a gifted aerial kicker?
Probably by doing a lot of jumping, kicking techniques. I used to love to do the jump spinning, looking techniques, and I would use it in fighting as well as in forms, and just, you know, practice them a lot and jump into the best.
And so for those who are watching you when you're competing in point karate or full contact, aerial kicks are obviously very flashy, very entertaining.
Yes, sir.
Now, when I look at your major competition record, I mean, it's obviously a very, very impressive record. However, I noticed that you do have some international championships that you competed in, the USA World International Championship, World Open Karate Championship, World Taekwondo Championship. Did you ever go into martial art competitions that were perhaps sponsored by a different style than that which you took? So, for example, Taekwondo versus karate. Did you have to compete with people in their style using your own?
Oh, yeah. I competed in a lot of different types of tournaments, and I just was always a freestyler, so I just did it my way.
Now, Chucky, was there ever a time in your life, either as a competitor or just as a human being, in which you experienced self-doubt?
Well, really, not really. You know, I might have got a little butterfly before I fought, but, you know, you train for the competition and you just believe in yourself.
And just believe in yourself. When I say the word awesome, who do you think of?
Jesus.
Good, honest answer. That's a good, honest answer. And when you fight, does he fight with you?
Oh, yeah. Him and Bruce Lee, we all team up.
So what advice would you share for young martial artists listening today who might be experiencing self-doubt?
Train hard, and with training comes confidence.
With training comes confidence. Do you follow the UFC and MMA?
I'm a good friend of Scott Coker, so sometimes I'm into it. I'm really trying to focus on film now.
That's right. So you're working on your film career. Now, by the way, as a tournament fighter, you know, when I was writing the book 21st Century Perspectives on Martial Arts, I noticed that the UFC crowd and the MMA crowd, rather, and the full contact karate and the point karate crowd, although there is some overlap, a lot of the time they swim in separate streams. So I don't always necessarily get guests on the show, for example, who come from tournament sport karate, who are fans of MMA and vice versa, and then there's others who are. So, you know, what are your thoughts on MMA, being somebody who came from a different background, who came from that sport karate and that tournament fighting background?
Well, I think it's really good. I just think that, you know, discipline and respect is very important. But, you know, when you're fighting, you're just in another mindset. But they're doing that, you know, they do what they can to the martial arts has come to a new level where it's just worldwide, and it's a good thing.
Do you have a favorite fighter in the UFC?
I like Ronda Rousey. You know, even though she might have got beat down, I feel like they're just probably because she's a nice girl.
So would you share with us, from a competition standpoint, what the most challenging fight would have been, or a fight that stands out as being a very challenging fight that you experienced in your career?
Well, you know, I guess the one of the last tournaments I fought in, because I wasn't expected to fight, and all of a sudden one of my instructors he said, is it curry chicken or chicken curry? So I went out and fought, and I fought some young guy, and he was really good, and it was just really fun, and I just got down. You know, I don't think about anything when I fight. I just let go and let God and just get on down with the groove, buddy.
Chucky Curry, one of the biggest characters in martial arts competition. So what would you say was the single biggest moment in your life to date?
Probably talking on the set of Ocean's 11 one-on-one with Brad Pitt. I think that was really, really great. That was fun and it was fluid.
And that was fluid as well. Chucky, would you share with us, when you're getting ready for a competition, what would that training regimen look like, and how far out would you begin preparing?
You know, I would train every day. I never would miss practice. And then early in the morning, I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go down to school and run track, stretch, throw punches and kicks, and then after that, go to school and just be ready to deal with whoever I was going to have to deal with.
Now, a lot of times on this show, Chucky, we like to examine various examples of challenges. You know, challenging moments or difficult moments or unfortunate human events that we all face in our lives. They happen. Would you be able to share with us an example of a difficult moment or a difficult occurrence in your life and how you faced it?
I think the most difficult thing I had to deal with is losing my brother and my sister in the last 2 years. But
I'm sorry.
Just pray and have faith in God, and then just, you know, believe and just move forward and just know that everything's going to be all right.
And keep the faith. So for some of our audience and our listeners who are experiencing loss at this point in time, any additional words of wisdom that you might get them since you've walked in their shoes?
Yeah, the best thing I can say is, you know, trust in the Lord and lean not towards your own understanding, and just know that everything's going to be all right. And make sure you get yourself ready, because tomorrow ain't promised to nobody. So get yourself right, because the fight might be tonight.
Now, Chucky, on our show, as you can appreciate, I'm sure we have lots of young future champions who are listening in for tidbits of information on what they should be doing or best practices. Can you give us some tips for some of our future champions on pursuing personal excellence?
Yes, well, you know, make sure you study your craft and make sure you stretch and kick and do extra exercise. I mean, if you want to be the best, you got to train harder than the rest.
And train harder than the rest. And lastly, Chucky, this is our last question, and I thank you very much for the interview. Before we bring it to closure, in terms of personal integrity, personal character, would you make a few comments on how the martial arts have taught you character lessons that you've had to apply to life?
Yeah, martial arts taught me a lot about being patient, being persistent, and being focused, and not letting nobody stop me from reaching my goals. Just to believe it and know that you can achieve it, and just take it one heartbeat at a time and just go for it.
Chucky, I want to say congratulations once again on your personal journey, and I wish you success on your endeavor towards a film career. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for having me. You have an excellent day, and thanks, everybody.
And you as well. Mr. Chucky Curry, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to check us out at our website at www.mawradio.com or at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube by following Martial Arts World Radio. Thanks for listening. I'm Joseph Clark, wishing you safe travels. Okay, and for our video followers on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, thank you for tuning in. We will be back at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Monday. Thanks once again.
Blue Water Radio News is brought to you by your Hanover New Orleans Pizza. Try the new rib